Your teenager isn't broken. They aren't bad. They aren't trying to drive you to the edge of sanity. But something is happening inside their brain right now that is shaping every reckless choice, every eye roll, every impulsive decision that leaves you standing in the kitchen wondering where you went wrong. And if you've ever looked at your smart, capable kid and thought, they know better, why would they do that? This video is going to completely reframe the way you see them. Because the answer isn't what most parenting advice tells you. And once you understand it, you will never look at a bad decision the same way again. Let's start where most parents find themselves. It's a Tuesday night. Your teen comes home late, you find out they were somewhere they weren't supposed to be, or maybe you get a call from school, or you find something on their phone, and the thing that hits you hardest isn't even the situation itself. It's that they knew better. You've had the conversations, you've explained the risks, they are smart, and they did it anyway. That gap between knowing and doing is the thing we're going to crack open today. Because that gap is not a moral failure, it's a neuroscience story. And understanding it changes everything about how you respond. Because if intelligence alone prevented bad decisions, teenagers with straight A's would never make dangerous choices. And we know that's simply not true. Here's the part most people don't fully grasp. The teenage brain is not a smaller version of an adult brain. It is a structurally different brain at a specific stage of construction. The emotional and reward centers, the parts that crave excitement, connection, novelty, and status, are fully online. They are firing hard. But the part of the brain that pumps the brakes, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for long-term thinking, risk calculation, and impulse control, is still being built. And it won't be complete until somewhere between 22 and 25 years old. This means your teenager is not choosing to ignore consequences. They are genuinely less equipped to feel those consequences before they happen. The brain networks that support long-term planning, impulse control, and weighing consequences are still developing, and experience helps strengthen those connections over time. Here is the non-obvious part. Warnings have their place, but the brain also learns through lived experience. Experiences that connect choices with real consequences help strengthen judgment over time. That means some level of age-appropriate exploration and risk-taking appears to play an important role in healthy adolescent development. When a teenager experiences the real consequences of a choice, the brain has an opportunity to strengthen the networks involved in judgment and self-regulation. Connections strengthen, judgment sharpens, the prefrontal cortex inches toward completion. So, when your teen makes a questionable choice, they are not failing. They are, in the most literal biological sense, doing exactly what a developing brain is supposed to do. The question is not how to stop it. The question is how to make sure the experiment doesn't kill them in the process. There is a pattern that almost always makes things worse, and it starts with shame. When a teen makes a bad call and the first thing they receive is a label, "What were you thinking? That was so stupid. You're irresponsible." Something specific happens in the nervous system. Shame triggers a threat response, and a brain in threat mode does not learn. It defends, it shuts down, it disconnects. Here's what most parents don't realize. Shame doesn't just fail to teach, it actively backfires. Because shame often shifts the brain's focus away from learning and towards self-protection. Instead of reflecting on what happened, many teenagers become preoccupied with defending themselves or avoiding future shame. That makes genuine learning much harder. The thrill stays, the lesson gets buried under defensiveness. And next time they're looking for relief from stress, boredom, or social pressure, the brain remembers the thrill, not the lecture. Shame is not a brake, it's an accelerator in disguise. Now, before we go further, there's a question worth sitting with, because there are actually two very different things happening when a teen makes a risky choice, and most parents treat them the same way. Ask yourself, do they not know the risk? Or do they know and just don't feel it yet? This distinction matters enormously. If they genuinely don't have the information, the response is education. But most teenagers already have the information. They've heard the warnings, they've watched the PSAs, they've seen the consequences in other people's lives. What they don't have is the neural architecture to feel those consequences as real, immediate, and personal before they happen. They know it abstractly. They can't feel it yet. That is not ignorance. That is developmental. And here is where most parenting advice misses a critical layer. The goal isn't just to get them to know more. The goal is to help them build the inner compass that knows before a situation escalates. And that compass is built through a specific kind of guidance, not control, not restriction, guided experience. This is where the natural consequences framework becomes one of the most powerful tools a parent has, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. Natural consequences does not mean stepping back and letting your teenager free fall into disaster. It means resisting the impulse to over rescue so that the lesson can land. Because when a parent rushes in to fix everything, when there is never any discomfort, never any outcome the teen has to sit with, your teenager has fewer opportunities to connect choices with meaningful outcomes. The experience doesn't register, and the next risk feels just as abstract as the last one. But when a parent lets a manageable consequence happen and then sits with a teenager in the aftermath, something completely different occurs. The brain connects action to outcome. The emotional system attaches feeling to choice, and slowly, over time, the inner risk assessor begins to function. The word manageable is doing a lot of work in that sentence. There are consequences you allow because they carry a lesson. There are consequences you prevent because they carry permanent damage. Learning where that line is for your specific kid in their specific life is one of the most nuanced and important jobs a parent has. There's something I think a lot of parents feel but don't always say out loud. There's a point where you start to wonder if all the conversations, all the guidance, all the care you've poured in has made any difference at all. I remember talking to a parent once who said she had done everything right, she thought, and her son still made a choice that scared her deeply. And what shifted for her was not a new strategy. It was realizing that he hadn't made that choice because she had failed. He had made it because he was 17, and his brain was still becoming itself. And she was going to be part of how it finished becoming. That reframe is quiet, but it's powerful. Now, let's talk about the thing that matters more than any single strategy. It's what some researchers call the secure base. And it's the difference between a teenager who calls you when things go sideways and one who disappears further into a problem because they're afraid of what you'll say. Here is the hard truth. If your teen believes, based on experience, that coming to you with a mistake will result in a storm of anger, disappointment, or withdrawal of love, they will stop coming to you. Not because they don't love you, but because their nervous system has learned that honesty is dangerous. And when the brain learns that honesty is dangerous, it starts hiding things. It routes around you. And the decisions you most need to be involved in are now made without you. The safety net is not built in the moment of crisis. It is built in hundreds of small moments before the crisis ever arrives. It's built every time a teen says something vulnerable and the parent stays regulated. Every time they share something embarrassing and there is no mockery. Every time they describe a bad choice and the response is curiosity before it is correction. That pattern, repeated over time, teaches the nervous system that this person is safe. And safe people are the people you call at 2 in the morning. There is a specific kind of conversation worth practicing. When a decision has gone wrong or a risk is on the horizon, instead of asking, "Why would you do that?" which closes down, try this. Ask them to walk you through what they were thinking, not to expose them, not to catch them in something, but to genuinely understand the logic their brain was using, because their brain was using a logic. It just wasn't adult logic yet. And when you understand that logic, you can help them build a better one, not by overriding it, by expanding it. This is where the risk assessment conversation becomes an actual tool. Ask your teen three things. What's the best case if this goes well? What's the worst case if it goes badly? And is the best case worth the worst case? Not as a gotcha, as a genuine thought exercise. Because the prefrontal cortex learns to do exactly this, to hold both outcomes and compare them, and you can accelerate that process by doing it with them, out loud, without judgment, before the moment arrives. The more times they rehearse that sequence in conversation with a safe adult, the more it becomes an instinct they can run on their own. And here is the piece that I think carries the most emotional weight in all of this. Your teenager's reckless moments are not evidence that they are going wrong. They are evidence that they are in the middle of becoming. The brain that makes an impulsive, short sighted choice at 15 is the same brain that 10 years from now will be able to hold complexity, feel long term consequences, and make decisions with a depth and steadiness that hasn't arrived yet. You are not dealing with a finished person who keeps choosing badly. You are standing beside an unfinished person who is still in construction. And the way you respond to the work in progress shapes the kind of adult it becomes. When you step back from the frustration of the moment and look at the fuller picture, something shifts. The teen who made the reckless choice wasn't reckless at their core. They were responding to a brain that is wired for reward, still missing its full set of brakes, and desperately learning how the world works. And they needed someone to stay curious about them, not just afraid for them. That Tuesday night, the late arrival, the thing you found out. Go back to that moment. Imagine responding not from the fear of what they did, but from genuine curiosity about what they were chasing. Imagine staying calm long enough to ask what they were actually looking for in that moment. Imagine being the person who makes it safer to tell the truth than to hide it. That one shift, from reaction to translation, is what moves you from someone they manage to someone they trust. And that trust is not just a parenting win. It is the foundation their adult self will stand on. You don't have to be perfect to be that person. You just have to stay in the conversation,